Hey, I'm Evan Antin, and I'm today's Man of the Hour.
On today's episode, why not bring on this exotic animal veterinarian and expert to find out why and how he even does what he does? Talk a little bit about overcoming fears, and maybe each of you will try a new thing or two after you hear this one. Evan Antin, dude. Coming to us from Calabasas, California. That seems to be the one hot spot for people who really don't want that much attention in Hollywood. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to bring you on because I know nothing about what you do. And I thought about studying it for a second, not studying it in college, but studying it before I talked to you. Because I was thinking to myself, well, wouldn't a good journalist want to understand what an exotic animal vet does for a living? But I just want to hear from you firsthand, because that's, ultimately how I would want to learn about you anyway. Nonetheless, welcome to the podcast. You are today's Man of the Hour. Thank you so much for being here, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Justin. I appreciate it.
You know, you were born in Kansas City, and then you went to the University of Colorado Boulder. Take us back really quickly. Give some people a synopsis of your life in a couple minutes here. When you think about why you decided to become a vet, how difficult I could only imagine, but how difficult it could have been to study such a topic in college and vet school. Walk us through all that, buddy.
Yeah, so I grew up in Kansas. The first place I grew up, my house up until I was like 8 years old or so, we had a creek in the backyard. And Kansas has a lot of beautiful wildlife. I was in near Kansas City, which is kind of eastern Kansas, so it's a bit more humid and a bit more green out there. And my earliest memories are me just like flipping rocks in my mom's gardens and in my neighbors' yards, looking for insects and snakes and turtles, and just getting out in nature. And I've always had this really deep fascination with the natural world, from a very, like I said, a very young age. And just, always loved and appreciated wildlife. We always had pets growing up. So I always had, dogs and cats, and we had some exotic pets too. I had a green iguana for a long time that was gifted to me. And we had a couple of rabbits and all kinds of stuff. So I actually went to college. I went to CU Boulder, like you said, and I started as a business major. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. Took some of the business courses, and it was interesting, but it wasn't, it still felt like school. Like when I was in high school, I wasn't that kind of student that I wasn't crazy about school. I wanted to hang out with friends and be social and party and go, play my sports and, just have fun. And I had to take a couple electives in the sciences, and I took a gem bio and an evolutionary biology course, and just fell in love. This is the first time I just really loved to learn. I actually really liked the content. I liked studying. I liked learning more. I didn't mind being tested on it. It was just such a different experience for me, hitting those topics. And it made more sense to me than anything else. And I just totally, connected with it. And it just, learning about how animals have these adaptations that make them survive better in the wild, and going from there, it made so much sense, especially with my appreciation for the natural world. It just kind of went from there. And I kind of had an appreciation for medicine. Like I remember when I was in middle school, I thought, man, it'd be so cool to be like a surgeon or something, work with my hands and know medicine. And for a split second, I thought maybe human medicine would be neat. But I was like, you know what? I love animals so much. As a veterinarian, you can do anything. If you go into human medicine, you kind of have to focus into a specific area. You can't do radiology and surgery and oncology and all these different things. You kind of just in these days, and in the US, you're going to get sued if you're doing something not in your specialty, basically. Like it's a much different kind of landscape. Whereas a veterinarian, you can pretty much do anything. We do have specialty veterinarians. We do have board certified dermatologists, cardiologists, oncologists, etc. But you don't have to do those things. You can still get educated in them and get experience with them, and still do, have a nice variety in your career and in your profession. So anyways, that became very appealing for me. And when I decided, I was going to switch majors to evolutionary and ecological biology, and start focusing on how am I going to get into vet school, that's what I did. And I started volunteering at a local wildlife rescue, Greenwood Rehab. It was the Greenwood Wildlife Rehabilitation Center nearby. And then started traveling more. I did a semester abroad in Sydney, Australia, and then traveled all over that country, just getting in the wild, getting in nature, looking for wildlife, just taking all that in. The next year I did a second study abroad in Tanzania, and that was a small group, and it was called a wildlife conservation and ecology program. in Tanzania. And basically, every year thereafter, every time I had enough money and enough time, I'd get out and explore some exotic part of the world. And I would try to hook up with wildlife rescues and conservationists and other veterinarians and get some experience.
Mm.
And when I was in vet school, I was taking every exotic elective I could and spending time at zoos and all exotic, vet hospitals and that kind of thing. And then when I was in my fourth year of vet school, I knew I wanted to live in Southern California. And so over 2-week-long trips, I visited about 20 or a little over 20 different vet hospitals that saw exotics. And when they were big practices, because it was important to me to go somewhere with a lot of doctors that could help kind of mentor me. I recommend that for any vet student getting out of vet school, going into clinical practice. Don't go work and be on your own. If you can get under, some good people to help guide you, that's super worthwhile, but that's another topic.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to get a feel for the landscape of the vets down here in Southern California, meets, what my colleagues, were like, and maybe if I'm lucky, get a job. So, I brought resumes with me and everything. And I had a great experience at the Conejo Valley Veterinary Hospital with their practice manager. They asked me to come back out for an interview a couple months later, and I hit it off with the practice owner. We have a ton in common. He loves to travel. He's a total nut. He loves surgery and wildlife and exotics and stuff too. And he's great. I mean, he's like a good friend of mine, but he's a great vet too. And he was my mentor too for a bit when I first started. So I started working there, and I've been there ever since at Conejo. And when I first started, when I first graduated vet school in 2013, it was the same kind of thing where, I'm just grinding as a vet. Vets don't make nearly the kind of money as doctors, human doctors make. And so it's the kind of thing where I'm trying to, just set aside just enough money and get some time aside so I could, continue to travel and continue to work with wildlife around the world. And, things picked up. I got really, really amazing fortune with some media coverage, and then going viral on Instagram. And like early 2016 was just like a total blessing and super amazing. And the last few years, man, I've been, the last couple of years especially, I've been kind of pretty part-time at the hospital. And I've been doing a ton of traveling and getting to work with some of my favorite wildlife all over the world. I mean, I've been to Africa like 10 times in the last couple of years. I've been to
Who
Southeast
gets to
Asia.
say that, Evan?
Oh, it's a trip, man. I mean, it's a dream come true. I mean, this is the kind of thing I wanted to do for 15 years. I was making YouTube videos and talking about, doing like educational videos, like Steve Irwin style. I started doing that kind of thing in Australia, and, just, looking for wildlife and talking about them and trying to get people excited about them. And just doing it at a very small scale, just hoping someday this will pay off, and I'll at least, get to connect and reach out to at least a few people. But if I'm really lucky, I can do this on a bigger scale and promote wildlife conservation and veterinary medicine in a bigger, broader way. And I still want to get bigger and broader, no doubt, but like I get to do it in a pretty big way now. And it's a dream come true, man.
Look at that. Dream come true because you manifested it, my friend. I think there's something to be said about that. And, we talk about that
100%.
a lot here on the podcast. It's almost like anybody we bring on, we just know that the influence is heavy now because your passion was even heavier before that.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly what it is. Like I learned that from an early age. I'm like a lifelong huge fan of Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh yeah.
And this guy he didn't, create this, but his whole thing is you have a vision. And you say, what do you want to be? What are the steps to get there? And I'm going to execute it. I want to be the world's biggest, most, influential bodybuilder. I want to be the biggest, larger than life action hero. I want to be the governor of California. He decides what he wants to do. And he's like, I'm going to do everything that needs to be done to make this happen. And he does it. And so that's when I have really important things in my life, like what I want to do professionally. That's how it was for me. There was just, I traveled and get to places in crazy ways and take some gnarly transportation and get in some gnarly jungle, which I love, and grind away and make a ton of sacrifices in vet school just so I could survive and get the grades and get the education that I needed. And there was no two ways about it. That's just what it is.
I love that, Evan. I want to go back to the fact that you said when you were sitting in classrooms at first, you were in business classes and you're like, I'm just kind of getting by. And then you started going to these more science-driven classes, eco-friendly driven classes. And you probably found that passion point and started realizing that the work didn't feel like work. Well, schoolwork rather, right? Didn't feel like schoolwork.
Right.
And now that you're working full-time, as an exotic animal veterinarian and someone who's practiced medicine, now performing medicine for animals across the world. where do you kind of see that come full circle for you, right? Does work feel like work now? Just like schoolwork didn't feel like schoolwork then?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love my job, and when I get to work with a lot of the animals I get to work with, I really enjoy it. I like working with my patients. I like getting out in the wild. I still love it. So, no job's perfect. Every job has its stuff you have to deal with. It's just part of the job. It's just impossible to find a job that is nothing but pure fun 100% of the time. But man, I mean, I wouldn't want to trade what I do with anybody else. I wouldn't want to be anybody else. Like, I'm so happy and fortunate, and it's like, for me, it was just good opportunity meets hard work, and I've had a lot of success from that. So yeah, it's worked out. I guess it is kind of full circle, and like I said, I don't feel like I've gotten to the place where I'm like, cool, I did it, I'm here, I'm done. Like, I still want to go bigger and bigger and bigger, but we're making some pretty good headway. If I go back in time and tell myself what I'm doing 15 years ago, I'd be like, that's what I'm talking about. I'd be pretty excited about it.
Yeah, because you have a vision, and just like Arnold Schwarzenegger says, you just got to put it into action and go for it.
Yeah.
So before you become the next governor of California, right? Hey, Evan, I'm going to speak that shit into existence because I can see it for you. In the meantime, you're still a vet, and you're still going down this incredible road and farsight journey to keep doing bigger and better things. But with that will always come hardships. What's the hardest part of your job?
Oh man. There's different, I mean, like, as a veterinarian in practice, it's tough, man, because there's a lot of pressure, and I mean, I think a lot of people become a vet because they just like animals and they don't like people. You don't realize you have to be a people person if you're going to be a vet. You're going to work with people's pets, especially because I'm working with their babies. I'm working with their kiddos, and they'll do anything for their pets, these days, more than it was when I was growing up.
Yeah,
I don't know about you, but where I lived when we were kids, 30 years ago, it was different, man. If the pet's sick, like, you put them down. We didn't have specialty oncologists and all these specialties and all these things, and pets didn't live as long, and it was just different. And these days, I feel like, man, people go through extremes for their livelihood of their pets and everything. And so just being involved with that can be pretty tough, man. When you got to deliver bad news, that's not fun. It's not easy. And you got to tell somebody, like, it's one of the most special little things in their life has some serious stuff going on. So that can be really tough. Something that's, it's never easy. It never gets easier, but I have an easier time. I don't want to say easier time, but I can cope with it more effectively. And that's like humane euthanasia. I mean, not to be dark and down or whatever, but it's like, it's not easy, man. You gotta make it, help an owner, help them make a decision that everybody feels comfortable with. And and then we have to, go through that process, which is really tough. At the same time, I do have to say this, I am extremely thankful that humane euthanasia is something that is a very real and, acceptable facet of veterinary medicine, because what a blessing that we can put animals out of their misery and their suffering before they have to do that last, the hardest bit of the suffering is at the very end, when, before they're kind of done. And we can just kind of end things before that. So again, not to get dark, I'm going like in a kind of sad direction here, but I mean, it is challenging, and it's as a human being, you're gonna have those intense emotional moments, and that's just a part of the job, but it's not easy. But yeah,
it's part of what makes you stronger. I have no doubt about. Oh wait, hold on! Don't tell me you're wiping away a tear, bro. I'm a little sad
no,
too. No,
I'm
I'm
good
kidding.
right now. I've got a fur in my eye. Yeah,
hanging out with too many animals, Evan. You know what? I think that there's so much light when you deal with somebody else's precious animal, precious child, precious gift, precious whatever it is. When you're the one handling a lot of what they couldn't handle, even if they tried, because they don't have the practices, they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the expertise, the degrees, the qualifications to back it all up. That's why they call you. So no matter what the outcome is, I think that they trust you, and they believe that you did do your best for whatever that outcome would have been, right? I'm sure you've saved animals, and I'm sure there's been unfortunate events with the animals you've dealt with. Regardless, I'm sure people are really happy with what you're doing. Evan, I want to ask you, take it back to college once more, because again, I think I pose this question to you in good favor that a lot of young listeners are watching and listening to you right now. But when you're having to study all of these, I don't even know what to call them because I didn't study veterinarian, I didn't study ecology. When you have to think about all the classes you took, all the qualifications you needed to meet, all of the degrees that you had to get under your belt in order to be doing what you're doing now, there had to have been days that were like, damn, this is hard.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
Right?
no, vet school, like, listen, I'm not a dummy, but I'm not just naturally gifted. I'm not the smartest kid in the class in that way.
Mm,
Like, I mean, I'm gifted enough. I can definitely get by. I excel in the sciences and in math courses and whatnot, and a lot of the stuff you need. I think I have a knack for certain things, but man, dude, it's work. It's work. Like, it's brutal. I mean, vet school is rough. It's, I mean, I mean, our whole second year is like, there was at least one, if not two super big mega exams every week. I mean, it was just like cram studying
wow.
pretty much every day for like months, and like going into clinics, and they're super long hours, man. You get there early, you leave late most days when you're on the rotations in the actual clinics later on in the in your veterinary education. And constantly, I mean, dude, I was like 25 through 29 years old,
Yeah.
and my friends, and a lot of them were, they're out of school, they're young professionals, they're having fun, and like, dude, my best friend, he was playing professional poker, and he was killing it, and he was going to Vegas and bringing all our friends out there and just paying for everything, and they were just having a blast. And dude, I would have to sacrifice on that every time that happened. I had some big fucking midterm or something coming up where it's like, God damn it, dude, I want to see you guys and do this, but like, dude, I can't botch this. I can't. Like, if I go do this, I'm not going to study. I'm going to come home and bomb this exam, because you can't just like cram in a vet school exam like the night before. I mean, I couldn't, at least. It's not like that. You have to know this. I mean, the amount of material you have to know for every test makes undergrad seem like kindergarten. I mean, it was just
Yeah.
such and CU Boulder's not, it's not the hardest school, but it's a legit, education. It's not a, I got a good education there. It's a good school. Oh my God, dude, it was brutal. And there are times you're just like, I never was like, oh my God, I'm like on the verge of quitting. It wasn't like that,
Right.
but it was like, it got stressful at times. I mean, we had these big tests at the end of every year called the capstone, and the fucking capstone, man. Basically, if it was a very hard test, they were meant to prepare you for boards. So every veterinarian has to take national boards in the
Mm,
U.S. with your board exam. Like, a lot of professions have their relative board exam. So it was meant to prepare you for that, and they were brutal. And I don't think my cortisol has ever been higher than in that week or two before
wow.
capstone. Like, really, I was just a mess, man. And I'm like, dude, if you don't pass these, you're out. And the fail rate was not high. I mean, there wasn't a lot of students failing out or anything, but it was like, dude, that's scary. Like, you can fail another test and you can probably work around it, worst case. And I never failed a test, but
Mm,
there's always that concern. But these ones, if you have a bad day, and anybody can have that, everything you've been working for could be like thrown out the window. And that's a lot of pressure for a young student that's just trying to do everything they can to get by. So yeah, there were moments where it was like, man, I cannot wait to get through this shit. And like, listen, I loved vet school. I love that I went through that education. I love that I pushed myself and made those sacrifices. And I think it's just made me a better, stronger person all around, and a more effective human in this world, let alone being a veterinarian, obviously. But bro, I wouldn't want to do it again. Like, one and done. That's enough for me. Like, it was great. Super. I went to CSU. It's one of the top 3 vet schools in the country, if not the world. Like, super legit education. But I'm good, man. That's all I need.
I guarantee you, one and done's the title of your podcast, Evan Antin. You know, so but during those 2 hard weeks, I mean, did you have remedies? I mean, you can say whatever the hell you want to on this podcast, but did you have remedies? What did you do to even get by? Was it more cramming and just caffeine? Let's load it up and go, or what were you taking, like yoga sessions? What were you really doing? What practical things were you doing to really stay sane when you were so stressed?
Yeah. I mean, I get asked this, and I don't always have a good answer, because honestly, it's just stressful, dude. It's just like, life's just gonna suck. I would just focus on there is a light at the end of the tunnel. You are going to get through this. You just put in the time. For me, I think something that was helpful was just having a schedule and being like, listen, you're going to wake up. I think it was a little bit of time off classes, but we still had some classes and stuff. So it's like, do your thing, go to school, do what you got to do. I'd try to work out if I could. For me, I love weight training and fitness, and that's like another, also connected to Arnold, but like that's another total passion of mine, and I
Yep.
love it. And that's something that's not only helped my physical health, but I think my emotional health as much as anything. So that would keep me, emotionally stable. Not that I'm unstable, but you know what I mean? Just like make you
Yeah.
feel kind of normal. And just devote time and just have like, okay, from the, X hour to X hour, which is like usually like 10 hours or something, I'm just cracking down. I'm sitting in my office and I'm just grinding, dude. I'm just like studying. And I just like would plan out the material I want to get through. And you do what you do. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it just sucks. And but it's not forever, I guess.
Yeah, because it's one and done.
Yeah.
I love that for you. I'm glad you don't even have to go through that anymore, right?
Oh, I'm
I don't
so
want
glad I
I don't
don't
want to
have
fucking go
to.
through it.
Oh,
And
you don't.
let's talk about time here for a second, because I think time is such a precious thing. And when you're allotting 10 hours to something, you better damn well be very passionate about it, Evan. So now that you're traveling more than you are, I mean, you mentioned being quite part-time now doing the practice, but ultimately traveling the world to do other influential things, probably, ultimately serving to the animal communities and then ultimately
Yeah, big
influencing
time.
people. So
Yeah.
what does your time organization look like now?
I mean, up until the pandemic, it was like, dude, I was probably gone like a third of the year, maybe more.
Can I,
Like I
you know
was.
what? Let me backtrack here. I want to study vet. Let me go to vet school real quick. I'll see you in 5 years. I'm going to travel
Yeah, right.
3/4 of the year. That's great, dude.
No, no. I mean, I was gone. Probably a good, yeah, probably like 4 months of the year. I was not in town. I mean, for example, I had a show on Animal Planet called Evan Goes Wild, and I was doing
Yep.
veterinary work, and I was working with conservationists and veterinarians and wildlife, and even with some domestics. I mean, around the world. And every episode took about a week with traveling and everything. And I mean, man, we were like in just about every continent, and we were just kind of everywhere and just killing it and having a great time. But I mean, we filmed that whole season in 3 months. I had to go to Spain for 10 days. In the middle of that, I'd come home every couple of weeks for like 36 hours and just do what I needed to do, clean up, do all my laundry and all my stuff, take care of all my pets
And go right
in
back.
between, and make sure all my reptiles and fish were all squared away, and give my mammals some love. And then I'd have pet sitters. But yeah, do that. I mean, there's other trips I do. It's not always with a show or with a brand or whatever. It's like my last international trip was Australia, and
Mm.
I hadn't been there since 2006 when I studied abroad there. This is my first time back, and I wanted to come out and help out animals that were affected by the wildfires they had at the beginning of the year, but beginning of 2020 of this year, and then the
Yep.
end of 2019. And it was awesome, man. That was my own money, my own time. I connected with some other vets, and I was familiar with their work on social media, and they were super awesome and receptive and helpful, and they got me connected with some really special places, and we had just an awesome time. And that was about doing a little bit of veterinary work where I could. I got to work with some Tasmanian devils and some koalas and some other wildlife and help out. But just being realistic, one of the most valuable things that I can do in my profession these days is the awareness and just the education, and get information out there, and tell, as many people as I can in my following and whatnot, what's going on in this part of the world. Why are these animals, why do we need to be concerned about them? What's their conservation status? What are these organizations doing
Mm.
to conserve our wildlife? And that's been a lot of, that's something that's been, I feel like I can bring a lot of value to the world of animals, vet medicine, wildlife conservation, um, because like there's a lot of vets out there that are badass vets. Like when I go to Africa and I go work with rhinos, I'm not the best rhino vet. I'm not going to pretend that I'm the best rhino vet. There's vets there I'm learning things from them every time I go. They're total badasses.
Yeah.
But I've got a big following. I've got a big outreach, so I can explain to people, why do we need to worry about rhinos? Why are they, critically endangered? Why are they getting poached so much? What's going on? What can we do to help curtail that? What needs to change? And a lot of people don't even realize that rhinos are being killed for their horns for, traditional Chinese medicine, ornamental, BS in China and Southeast Asia. A lot of people don't even have
Mm.
any idea.
Wow. Let's elaborate on that, because that was actually my next one. It up quite perfectly. You know, when you are when you're thinking about the bigger picture here, the larger influence, I mean, the over 1 million followers that you have just on Instagram, um, where do you think your responsibility is as an influencer now, you know, and a vet, right? You're an influencer and vet, and this guy who's working with animals day in and day out, traveling 3 to 4 months out of the year, doing all this great work. But where do you think your responsibility is and all that to really share and spread the message?
I mean, it's kind of like what I was saying. It really, I feel like the best thing I can do is focus on where I can bring the most value. And I love being a vet in practice and working on individual animals. That's also a massive reason why I do what I do and became a veterinarian. But being realistic, it's like, man, I think I can make a bigger of a difference if I focus a lot on the outreach too. And do these trips and just get out there and just, share this stuff and put it on social media and incorporate it into my shows or whatever, or my book. I've got a book I'm launching in October, tell those stories, tell about the animals and just bring that awareness out there. I mean, when it comes, this is very simple, and this applies to anything, not just wildlife conservation, but I forget, Jane Goodall, I think she put it well, and some other people have quoted something like this, but it's like, you can't, something like, you don't love what you don't know. Or no, I'm going to totally botch this. Something like, you don't love what you don't know. And or like, you only conserve what you love and you only love what you know. Something like that. And what it's meant to, get across is, if you're not even aware that something's going on, who's going to make a difference?
It goes hand in hand with, we should go to quote school. We'll go for 6 months, right? No, it's fine, dude. I mean, I think the reason we're alluding to it's because it's stuck in our head, but it goes hand in hand with what you don't know won't hurt you, right? That's the opposite of what you're talking about. And
yeah, I mean, that's the same. Yeah, that also applies big time to animal welfare and conservation too. But yeah, if you don't know about it, you're never going to make a difference if you're not even aware of it. So I feel like right now, a lot of the biggest things I can do is just bring awareness and just tell people what's going on. Listen, if you're passionate about wildlife, you're passionate about this animal too, you can help out. And then I try to, explain ways that people can do exactly that.
Yep.
So I think awareness is one of the biggest steps. I mean, when it comes to social media and wildlife, this is a whole other bag of worms, and we can get into it as much as you want to. But one of my biggest concerns is that social media, the net effect of social media as a whole, I worry it's doing more damage than good for wildlife conservation. And that's
in what ways?
Concern for me, and it kills me to say that and to see that be the case, but it is a reality that I think is true. And I also want to make as much of an impact as I can there and explain what, why, and how that is the case, and how we can try to get away from that and make it better.
Yeah. I mean, and doing some damage too, with that in mind, what are some of the ways you think we could immediately start helping? I mean, someone like me who doesn't know a lot about it,
Sure.
Any of our listeners and viewers are in it of the same, I'm sure. So what are some of the ways you've been kind of telling the choir what we could be doing better?
Yeah. I mean, one example that I think is a big one that I think we see regularly is like, I mean, here's the thing on social media. I always like to just make this clear for people. When you're on social media and you are liking or engaging or commenting or sharing or whatever.
You saw that just go to the side, didn't you?
Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Watch it.
Oh,
just a sec, bro.
Rolling time over here. I like it to kind of like, it was like a perfect 90-degree angle.
You know what I think it is? We also have about 7 minutes on this call. I think that also has a 30-minute time code.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Continue what you were
we had
saying.
Earthquakes last night. I got woke up from earthquakes last night.
Because you're in California. My friends out in LA said the same.
Earthquakes. I got to check my clocks on the wall, make sure they're all upright. Last night was an adventure, man. My dog got sprayed by a skunk last night.
And an earthquake happened.
Yeah, and an earthquake about 45 minutes later. I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? It was crazy. Like, this is not an everyday occurrence. We're in my backyard. Like, I'm taking him out for a late night pee before we go to bed. And he goes running and barking at something. I'm like, no, Henry. And he's right here.
And he stinks. Hi, Henry.
Yeah, I put
Okay, and
you
he's like,
got
leave me alone.
to put a high alkaline liquid on them. I don't have hydrogen peroxide at the moment, so
Well,
vinegar is another option.
or tomato
So
juice,
yeah,
right?
it
Tomato
breaks the
paste.
sulfur alcohol bond that the skunk spray is. It breaks it. So then I pour that on and groom them. It made it. Excuse me. So I made a big difference. Anyways, what were we saying? Social media. Yeah, I mean, when you go on social media, you're voting. Okay, every
Mm,
time you do anything, you're voting and you're saying, I advocate this brand, whether or not you like it or whatever. When you engage, you're giving them engagement, and that engagement can help grow their platform. Okay, and so when like one of the like something I've talked about many times is like, for example, we see apes, particularly chimpanzees, and there's big, super mega viral videos of chimpanzees bathing with other animals, wearing outfits, cuddling with people, cuddling with pets, playing on their phone, on Instagram, on a phone, on like swiping and stuff. And it's like, dude, this is actually horrible. Okay. First of all, chimps shouldn't be doing this stuff. They're wild animals, that, yeah, we have a lot in common with them, but dude, and I'm not saying these chimps specifically have miserable lives, but
right.
what that does for our wild chimps is terrible, man. It actually fuels poaching. When you do that and see that kind of thing on social media, that gets so many people being like, oh man, I want a chimp for a pet. Or the organization's thinking like, oh, we need to get chimps in, like not so much here, but really they go to Asia and the Middle East and they go to these shitty zoos and these just sketchy ass places. And it's like, we want chimps to be like a tourist attraction, and we're going to dress them up and play games with them, and tourists can come pay to do stupid stuff with them. And when you see those things on social media spreading around like that, dude, you're fueling that. And so this is an easy way. Then you don't have to pay money. You don't have to put a lot of time into this. Just be intelligent on social media. So if you see that stuff, do not engage. Don't like, don't comment, don't share any of that stuff. When you see, wildlife like that behaving not like a wild animal, because you're actually fueling a completely different industry. Same kind of thing if you see it like with big cats. Think, oh man, I want one, or I want to pet a little baby tiger. Like, dude, you're fueling places in the U.S.
Right.
then have baby tigers, and then are petting them and providing this kind of thing. And tiger cub petting is a shit industry. It's an ugly, ugly industry. We all got a little taste of that from Tiger King, but dude, it's bad news. And so just be intelligent on social media. Think about
Yeah.
what you're really promoting and liking, because every time you like anything, and this goes for anything, not just animals, you're voting for it, and you're helping that brand grow. So
Yeah.
just think about it. I'm not shaming anybody. I think people like this stuff because they like animals. They're not bad people. They got a good heart.
Sure.
Their heart's in the right place. They want what's best for these animals, but they're not doing them a big favor.
That's it. And I think too, it starts with social media because it's the easiest thing. We can just get on our phones and tap it, right? Just as easy as we
Easy.
can like and share, we can easily slow down for a sec, think about it, and then, act. Something we're not doing so great as a generation now is just
Yeah.
tap, like, swipe, scroll. These things are like, to me, they're nonsense, but it's essentially what people just do on autopilot. So to your
Sure.
point, let's try to do less of that and actually figure out,
We'll
you
just think
know,
about what we want to promote, and there's
right,
so many, listen, when I say the net effect, I'm saying all the bads are outweighing the goods. There's a lot of goods. There's a lot
right,
of good educational people. I think my platform, what I do, listen, I know it's awesome for wildlife because I'm always promoting the right things. My animals are the number one priority, no matter what. I don't do anything or post, even if I'm like, man, this would kill it. This would get such good engagement
yep,
of me like playing with this baby chimp in the Congo, but I'm not going to post that because I'm a white Westerner. And when they see that, they're going to think of it more of it as a pet thing. Like I can't do it. And I know
it's
it would just do awesome for my brand, but I'm not putting my brand over the animals ever.
yeah.
So
No,
yeah.
I respect that madly, man. Especially all the things that you've studied and you've done. When you think about the one thing you know today that you wish you knew on the first day you became a full-time practicing veterinarian, what would that one thing be?
I mean, I think not just for me as a veterinarian, but also with the media stuff and everything else I do, I think I would want to drive home and tell myself, bro, the only person that has your 100% best interest is you. And I'm not saying I'm constantly dealing with people that are trying to screw me over, but at the end of the day, everybody else that I work with, they have their priorities. And I get it and I respect it. But at the end of the day, the only person that is like fully invested in what's always best for you is you. And so always remember that when you're doing things where you're worried about whether it's on brand or what you're comfortable with or what you're negotiating or whatever it is, remember that, and that's super important. And that
Yeah.
goes for any profession. That's not just because I'm a veterinarian. I would say that to any professional.
Yeah. No, I respect you 10 times more, as if I didn't already respect you for what you do. Because I mean, think about it. At the top of this podcast 30 minutes ago, I had no idea what you did. And I wanted to come in blind because I believe that people like you do what you do because you're so passionate about it. And that's why you're today's man of the hour. And I thank you so much for coming on the podcast, spending some time with us, especially, I mean, 2020 was a hell of a year. I'll say it every single time I see somebody, face to face, Zoom to Zoom, whatever it is, this year was really tricky. And so I thank you for spending just a little bit of time with us to give us some insight into what you do as a practicing vet, someone who works with exotic animals. But ultimately, I mean, your highline vision here, Evan, correct me if I'm wrong, but is to really help educate people, especially now that you have this pool of following and a huge influence in the marketplace. Take a lot of that and just help people to understand what they could be doing better to not only support, but to help save some of those animals that you have to work with every single day.
100%, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure getting to be on the show and getting to chat. And I love chatting about what I do. I love educating people about animals and getting everybody excited about that. So I'm happy to do it anytime, man. Thanks for reaching out.
Justin Crawford here, and I'll be back next week with another great guest on the Men of the Hour podcast. In the meantime, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review right here and anywhere else you'd like to listen. Also, check out our Instagram and YouTube channels when you get a chance and see the full video interviews with our guests at Men of the Hour podcast. Thanks for listening. Now get out there and make a positive change for yourself and those around you.